life. This is the second part. You started this last Sunday. So it begins there with a little discussion, a very interesting one for that matter. John, a second-year student, university student, has just discovered that he is dating the same college girl with his dad on Facebook. I thought you'd be shocked. Anyway, it's not news anymore. Since this discovery, John and his dad do not see eye to eye, obviously. What do you think John's dad might be going through? And what advice would you offer him? What do you think he's going through? I mean, this is the time you talk. I mean, like, what's the deal with his father? What do you think? What do you think is what's going on? I mean, why would that man be dating somebody who should be the age of his daughter? Why? What's the problem here? Is it the devil? I can see some of you ladies are getting angry. It's my shindu, pepo mbaya, pepo chafu. What is the? Come on, talk to me, Sister Muburuburu. What is the problem? Somebody, let me hear somebody. What is the problem? What's wrong with this man, with his father? What do you think he's going through? Anybody? Oh, there's somebody right there. Okay, let's get a microphone. Only one bold person in all this crowd. What is wrong with John's dad?
He's going through a midlife crisis.
What is a midlife crisis?
It's where he's lost vision, and he's probably feeling nimeanza kuzeeka, and he's looking maybe to try and renew his youth, and he's confused about how to go about that. And rather than talk to John's mom, wasaidiane, he's gone on Facebook.
Wanaweza saidiana vipi? Is a question.
Amweleze Mama John. Kuna vile roho yangu
sikufeel.
No, not sikufeel. No, kuna vile roho yangu inaumia. You know, najihisi hivi na hivi na hivi. So unaona, you know, how can you come alongside me and walk with me? But instead, he's heard that, you know, Facebook is where it's all happening.
Okay.
So I'm in the Facebook. Kujaribu kujisaidia. And we all know how that goes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you agree? Are you in agreement? Okay, some of you are in a disagreement. What do you think then? What is wrong with this man? Anybody with a contrary view? Contrary opinion? Oh, there's a gentleman over here, finally. Let's hear what the gentleman will say. Probably for him, he'll feel, John, what's the problem? You know? All right.
Praise the Lord, Church.
Amen.
On my side, I would say that John's dad has lacked to be a man of integrity, and he has lacked principles in his life.
Okay.
Because a man of integrity and a man who is divine value and principles, he cannot do such things.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's also an issue of loss of integrity.
Yeah, and values of
There's a loss of integrity, loss of values.
Yeah.
All right, good. So there's an issue of midlife crisis, definitely, sometimes, because you would assume that for a man who has a son in the university, how old will that be? Maybe 50? Maybe just thereabout, all right? So he's a middle-ager, isn't it? So there's a midlife crisis, sometimes that can set in. But if the midlife crisis sets in and you're not a principled person, you'll probably end up doing what you will, because everybody will go through a midlife crisis of one sort or the other, isn't it? But we will not necessarily end up doing what he has done. And the difference is that you have to be a man of integrity, a man of principle, and a man of... We'll discover that as we move along. I think we'll pick up this discussion a little bit later in the lesson. Right? So we're going to look at a few seasons of life. You started this last week, so today we'll just kind of be looking at the other seasons of life. So we want to begin with season 3, 20 to 40 years. Let me find out from this congregation, how many of you are in this particular season? 20 to 40 years of age. You're between that age. You're from 20, between 20 and 40. Wow, look at that. Just look around. My goodness, majority of you. So the rest of us are the minority. I mean, from up here, let me tell you the truth. I mean, it's almost more than 90% of you are in that category. The rest of you who did not lift up your hands, you are a minority. Just so you know, all right? Ambition, this particular season is characterized by ambition and decision making. What are the basic needs of a young adult? Let's answer that question. What are the basic needs of a young adult? Number one is choice of a marriage partner. How many of you are in that category and you're not married? And you hope to get married one day? Let me see by a show of hand. How come the numbers have become so few? Let me see by a show of hand. Listen, I'm trying to help you. If you want to get married, somebody might see you. This might be the answer to your prayer. Lift up, you should be vigorous. You lift up your hand and you look around, like I'm here, hey, look no farther, He who finds a wife finds a good thing. Can I just do a little exposition on that? He who finds a wife a good thing. That's in Proverbs chapter 18, verse 22. Now, I want you to notice, the Bible says there, he who finds a what? A wife, not a slay queen. Not a diva. He who finds a wife, you can be a lady and you're not wife material. Because being a wife takes a little bit much more maturity. All right? So because when a man is looking for a wife, he's looking for a wife. He's not looking for just some little girl to just come and occupy his space. You're looking for a wife. There are certain things that endear you to become a wife. I can tell you that for sure. All right? And unfortunately, we are living in an age and in a stage of women empowerment, which is a good thing on the one hand. But sometimes we are failing to train our young ladies to become wives. So sometimes they get married, and within a short while, within a few weeks, sometimes, by the way, within a few months, the marriage is actually in trouble. And when you hear some of the things that people are fighting over, it's just a lot of immaturity at the end of the day. He who finds a wife finds a good thing, which then assumes that this man who is looking for a wife, he himself is husband material. Are you with me? Also, because marriage is not for boys. Marriage is for men, for husbands. And I'll share just with you just a few things on that. Number two, I want you to notice in this particular verse, very, very brief verse, but I think it is loaded with meaning. It says, he who finds a wife. In other words, if you're a girl, if you're a lady, you're wife material, you are waiting to be found. Are you with me? You are supposed to be found by somebody. It is not you who does the finding. Women empowerment. Women have become very aggressive. Stop chasing after men. You just relax. Be nice, pretty, relax, pray, let him find you. I'm old-fashioned to believe that, by the way. Let him find you. Now, the question is, what if he doesn't? Some of these men are so shy. If a man is going to be a husband, surely he has to be courageous to come and tell you it is you. Usimsaidie. Are you with me? And notice who does the pursuing. It is he, not she. Tuko pamoja? So if you're a young lady, don't chase a man. Men were never designed to be chased. They were designed to do the chasing. And by the way, young ladies, it is okay to play hard to get. And now you're looking at me very strangely. You don't have to say yes the first time. Ringa kidogo. Okay, let me go on because I noticed I'm getting in trouble here. Number two, choice of career or vocation. These are the needs of young adults, all right? They're trying to settle down in their career, in their vocation. The Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and take care of it. Notice, by the way, in Genesis chapter 2 and verse 15, talking about Adam the first man, before God gave Adam a wife, he gave him work. You missed that. Before God gave Adam a wife, he gave him work. Let me try that again. Before God gave Adam a wife, he gave him work. In other words, young ladies, before he finds you, let him find work. Are you with me? You're not going to eat love. You know, nowadays we have a category of young men, by the way, who are very strange. They're always talking about deals. You know, deal. You know, this deal, man. This one, if it goes through, I'll make 1 million shillings. 2 weeks later, you meet the guy, now he's talking about another deal. And you wonder, what happened to the first one? Did it even materialize? They're talking about deals and all these big things, and they never materialize. Get a job. A real job. Investment is the other thing that you need to be thinking about. I think in that age category, by the way, it's not the age to begin living a high life or a life that you can't afford. It's a time when you begin making money, begin planning for your future, begin planning for the days that are ahead. I see a lot of young people sometimes, you get very good jobs, you get out of the university, God blesses you, you have a well-paying job, 6-figure salary, and you find a guy maybe he's earning about 100,000 shillings. That's very good money, by the way, for you to start off. But that's not the time to pay 60,000 shillings house rent. Are you with me? That's not very clever. All right? That's not the time to go and look for a loan to buy a vehicle. All right? I have never taken a loan to buy a car, by the way. It's never a good idea. You had rather take a loan to start a business. You had rather take a loan to buy property or to buy a house or to buy land. But vehicles, you have to be extremely careful because a car is really not an asset, by the way. Those of you who are accountants, you know what I'm talking about. Because a cars never appreciate in value. In fact, even if it is a brand new vehicle you bought from the showroom, the moment you drive out, it depreciates. Am I right? So it's not an investment per se, all right? If you buy a vehicle today, in 3 years down the line, I can assure you you're not going to sell it for the same amount that you bought it. You're going to have to lose some money on it. So be careful. Even if you're going to buy a car, there's no problem with starting with a Vitz. Are you with me? You don't have to buy a BMW just so that you can look like you have arrived. You haven't arrived. Go slow. All right, go slow. That's not that's not the time to buy a big vehicle. You're living in a big house somewhere. You're living in in debt. Even the clothes you're wearing, all of them are on credit. And sometimes I fear for some of the young people, because I've been a youth pastor for a long time, and I sometimes talk to some of these young people, and I know some of them, by the way, if they lose their job today, they can't survive it in 1 month. All right, because they have no savings, they have no investments. If they were to lose their job immediately, they will be in serious trouble. All right? So that's the age where you apply wisdom financially in your career. That's when you begin thinking about your future. Start thinking about what will happen in the event that I don't have this job. The day I retire, what happens to me? All right? That's when you begin thinking about that. Now, how can the church minister to young adults? And I've already, I think, alluded to some of these things even just by, as we began. Train them in planning and goal setting, exactly what I'm doing. All right? It is our responsibility to help these young people and be able to begin planning, setting some goals for themselves. Suppose one of you wants to build a tower. Won't you first sit down and estimate the cost to see if you have enough money to complete it? All right, so it is our job. It is especially those of us who are a bit more experienced, who are a bit more advanced in age and in years, you have a bit more experience in life. It is our responsibility to turn to our young people and pass on the same values to them. We can also minister to them through mentorship and coaching them. All right, those of you who are older, find some of these young men, find some of the young ladies, mentor them, coach them. Sometimes young people make mistakes, not because they're bad people, but because they don't know. They don't know any better. And sometimes it's easy for us to condemn them and point fingers at them, but the problem is not so much the young people. Sometimes the problem is actually us who are older because we never took time to mentor them in the things that we need to mentor them in. All right? And especially, by the way, and I'll tell you, how many of you here, you're older, you're probably more than 40 years old, you're married, you have a family. Let me see by a show of hand. You're much, much older. Now, especially the men, those of you who are men here, we need to take the younger men under our wing and teach them what it means to be a husband. All right? Now, some of you are even have much more years than I do. I've only been married about 15 years. I know some of you are married 20, 30 years here. All right? But how many of you know that if you've been married for any considerable amount of time as a man, that you have definitely grown? And I'm not talking about physically. How many of you know that? How many of you know that being a husband is one of the things that will transform you from being a selfish man to being a man who is able to accommodate other people in their lives? Because men are naturally selfish, isn't it? But you know that marriage changes you, all right? We need to pass on the same values to the young men who are coming up behind us, all right? So that they too can be able to benefit from the experiences that we've actually gone through. Otherwise, we are setting up our young people for a very difficult life and even difficult marriages. Mentorship and coachship and coaching them, by the way, is a lot of work, I can assure you, because it's not something that you do from a distance, it's something that you do on a one-on-one. You have to be close to these young people. Engage them in worthwhile service. Throughout Enlist, we've been talking about service. And by the way, can I just know whether you remember, what is the definition? The simplest definition of service is what? Service is doing something for the benefit of somebody else. All right? It is our job also, our responsibility, to engage them in worthwhile service. And that is why we are also, we've been talking about Enlist, because we need the strength of our young people to be engaged in service in the local church. But then let's turn to the young people themselves. Those of you who are in this particular season of life, what are your responsibilities? Because you also have your responsibilities. Number one is that please make yourself available for mentorship. You cannot be mentored from a distance. Make yourselves available. All right? How do you make yourself available? Be there physically. Show up in church. Be around older people. Belong to a safari group. Are you with me? All right? Don't distance yourself. Don't cut yourself off. Because the tendency of being young sometimes is that we feel that we know everything. Isn't it? And our tendency is to withdraw, to want to do things by ourselves. Where we start feeling like, oh, the older people, they don't understand us. You know us, we are complicated. Oh, you know us, we are the digital age. We are millennials, these older people. Can I tell you something, by the way, especially those of you who are millennials? There is nothing new under the sun. Can I tell you there's nothing new under the sun? Your generation, the younger generation today, of course, you're being born into a digital environment, into a digital world. That's good. And that's where we are at in this world. And that has come with its own challenges, because then when you're in a digital, if you're born in a digital era, you feel that those who are born before may not understand and fully appreciate where you're coming from. Are you with me? That may be true. But can I tell you, every generation comes with its own challenges. There was a time wearing jeans was a problem. Are you with me? Anybody who remembers those days of belly bottoms and platform, anybody remember those things that you used to wear? And it was a big deal, isn't it? And the younger people that time, maybe in the 60s, they felt and thought that the older people do not understand us. Isn't it? It was a big deal. It was a big deal having an afro, especially if you're a man. There was that stage, there was that season. There was a season, by the way, even in the church, wearing jeans was considered that you're sinful. But things have changed. Every generation comes with its own challenge. But I can tell you this, there is nothing new under the sun. The same challenges that you're going through now, I promise you, others have gone through them before you. There is nothing new. Which means then that it is important for us to put ourselves in an environment where we can learn from those who have gone on ahead of us. How do we do that? Let me make myself available. Show up when I need to show up. You're very quiet in here today. Do I have those 20 to 40-year-olds here? Is there anybody? Are you there? You're so quiet. Show up. Tell your neighbor, show up. Be there. Be available. All right? Don't isolate yourself. I beg you, young guys, do not isolate yourselves. Create helpful networks. It's an age and it's a good time for you to create helpful networks. By the way, choose your company carefully. All right? Choose your friends wisely. This is not the stage or age where you want to waste time with people who are going nowhere. Commit to a life of hard work and service. This is a time to engage and employ your strengths and your giftings to things that truly matter. Whatever your hands find to do, do it with all your might, for in the grave where you are going, there is neither working, nor planning, nor knowledge, nor wisdom. How can the young adult serve? So you ask, how can I serve as a young adult? Of course, give. You're earning some money, please. Give of your tithe. Give of your offerings. Right now, of course, as Pastor Carol was mentioning about our mercy basket, we have needs all around us. We have neighbors around us who are in need. We are constantly bombarded every week with people coming here, and all they want is just a packet of unga, some food, just to put food on the table for their families. We have a responsibility. As the Lord has blessed you, you may have a job, you're earning something reasonable. It may be much, it may be little, it doesn't matter. But you can actually say, I will spare 50 shillings, I will spare 100 shillings, 1,000 shillings. Let me be a blessing to somebody else. Give to somebody else. Make somebody else's life easier, because God has already blessed you. That's one way you can actually serve. It doesn't take much, isn't it? In fact, let me ask you, how many of you know that maybe after this particular service, you're going out for lunch somewhere? Anybody? You're going to eat something at least. Let me see. Or you're fasting. All right? But you're going to eat something. Some of you are not going to eat at home. You're going to eat somewhere, isn't it? Because you don't have time to go and cook at home. How many of you bet you know the food that you're going to eat is going to be not less than 100 bob? Let me see. At least 100 shillings. Isn't it? Because it's so easy, you know that you can actually spend 100 shillings easy, isn't it? But do you realize that 100 shillings can be a whole meal for a whole family? Are you with me? And sometimes just remembering that and saying, you know what, let me just spare 100 shillings, let me spare 200 shillings, let me be a blessing to somebody else as the Lord blesses you. But how many of you know that God is no man's debtor? You can serve. Please find a ministry to serve in the church. Leadership. By the way, leadership skills are honed and they blossom at their best. They become their best at the young adult stage. This is where you begin to develop those leadership skills. All right? So, and those leadership skills are available not only in the church, in the community, wherever you are in the corporate world, but you must be available to occupy those leadership positions. Teaching, all right? We have those who are younger than you, our teenagers, children's ministry. Please avail yourself and say, I'm going to teach. Maybe this year I'm going to involve myself with the teens ministry or youth ministry and what have you. Do something. Mentorship, by the way. You're never too young to mentor those who are behind you. Those are some of the ways you can serve. Let's go to season number 4, ages 40 to 60. Do I have anybody in that category, ages 40 to 60? Let me see by a show of hands. Ages 40 to 60, the hands have become considerably fewer. Ages 40 to 60. Good. So this period is marked by children beginning to move out. Empty nesters. Anybody who is an empty nester here? You have your children are all grown up. They have left home. Now how you started. Let me see. Anybody who's an empty nester? Yeah, okay. Nobody in this service? Is there anybody? We have an empty nester over there. Wow, God bless you. All right, but we're all heading there, by the way. Caring for aging parents. This is the age where now our parents, by the way, have become much older. They need our help, they need our care, they need our attention. It can be very, very difficult. It can be very distressing sometimes because some of them end up maybe suffering from very difficult situations. And it's our responsibility, to take care of them, taking them to hospital and what have you. Paying the hospital bills can be very, very difficult. Of course, it's also the age where you'll be burying your parents, by the way. increasing responsibility for extended family and community, you find that in that age, your responsibilities begin to expand exponentially. Because now your responsibility is not just for your immediate family, not just for your children and your wife or your spouse, but also there are other demands from the community, from the people around you. People are looking up to you. People want to draw from you, whether in the extended family, whether in the community, even in the larger church. This is the age where we will actually walk up to you without ceremony and tell you, by the way, we think you should be an elder in the church. Are you with me? Because we have watched you and we are thinking this person has a lot to offer, and we want to draw from their wisdom. All right? And we find ourselves, by the way, in those ages, and they just sneak up on us. What are the main needs of the middle-aged? Number one is making a difference or leaving a legacy, because it is at the age where you realize that the years ahead of you are fewer than the years behind you. So you realize you have no time to waste. This is the age where you want to leave a legacy. You want to put your house in order. You want to make a difference in other people's lives. You want to make a difference where it truly matters. Number two is the age where you want to remain relevant. Because again, realize at this age, you realize that there are so many things that you cannot be able to do anymore. You're no longer young. You don't have the strength, and the vitality is no longer there. And there's a tendency sometimes where you may begin feeling lost. You may begin feeling irrelevant. Let's go back to John's father, the story that we began with. He's a middle-ager, and probably for him to remain relevant in that middle age, he finds a Kayan girl, just trying to remind himself that he's still a man. Are you with me? All right? Maybe just trying to pacify himself that he's still attractive, he's still desirable as a man. And you find people go through that. They go through those kind of middle-life crisis. That's the age where you find sometimes even old men, somebody who is much aged, maybe in their 50s, and they begin to behave like a teenager. What are they doing? They're trying to remain relevant, that, hey, I am here. I am still here. I am still good looking. Of course, it may not necessarily be the case, but you're trying to remain relevant. It's just a matter of remaining relevant, basically. All right? It's an age where you want to earn respect. All right? You want to be called Muheshimiwa. That's why some people get even into politics at this particular age, because you want to walk somewhere and people recognize you. All right? And people stand up when you come into the room. You want to earn some respect. I'm not saying that generally that's what happens to every one of us, but it's an age where you want to respect. And by the way, we are in Africa, and one of the things, the African tradition and our culture is that we respect age, isn't it? But it's something that you find in our time is we're actually losing that. You find that now we are in the age where we want to refer to everybody by their first name. It's a bit uncomfortable, by the way. I think there's something wrong with that. Because when somebody is much older, it's difficult for you to call them by their first name. How many of you remember you went to primary school, now you're 50, but if you meet your primary school teacher somewhere, you're 50, you are Ramzee yourself. How many of you still call them Walimu? Or whatever you, how many of you, there was you find it impossible to call them by their first name. In fact, if they walk in, you stand up. Why? Because there's a virtue of respect. And we need to teach our young people this virtue in respect. Are you with me? Otherwise, we are coming to an age and a stage where our children will begin calling us by our first name. They will not call you dad, they will call you James. I'm serious. All right? Because it's that, the thing about Africa is that we tend to emulate and we tend to take in all these foreign cultures that came bombarding us. Last week when I was attending class, of course this is America, this is the US, this is the West. In the West, for them is the first, they call you by your first name. But you see, for me, I'm in class and I'm thinking, I'm the only black guy in my class. All the other guys are Westerners. And I'm there in class and I'm thinking, how do I call my professor by his first name? You understand? Because for me it's difficult. You know how, anybody know what I'm talking about? But you see, for them, they will just call him, in fact, this professor is originally from Jamaica, his name is Pedrito. And they'll just call him Pedrito. I'm thinking, Sasa, it was difficult for me to just call somebody by their first name. And it was big, because I'm thinking, it doesn't happen. It's hard for me to do that. But when I think about it, it may, of course, some people in the West sometimes, or even some of the younger generation, may want to make us look like we are archaic, it's primitive. But when I think about it, I think it's good. It's actually very biblical. We must respect age. If you agree with me, please say amen. Are you with me? And it's important. And that particular age is important for us to respect age. Teach the older men, that's what the Bible says, to be temperate, worthy of respect, self-controlled, and sound in faith, in love, and in endurance. Number 3 is pursuing one's dreams with passion. At that particular stage, all right, you want to pursue your dreams with passion. You know, that thing that you always wanted to do, this is the age you want to do. That house you wanted to build, this is the age where you want to put those dreams into brick and mortar. All right, and you find there's a certain passion with you where your dreams and your passions are concerned. So how can the middle age serve? How can you serve? How can you be involved in the church? Number 1 is passing on godly values to the next generation. I've already said that, all right? It is, by the way, it is not just the job of the pastor. Are you with me? It is our job by virtue of the fact that I have accumulated certain experiences and a certain age, I have a responsibility. Even if I only pass on those values to one person, I have done my part. Are you with me, church? And it's important for us to take up those responsibilities. In everything, set them an example by doing what is good. In your teaching, show integrity, seriousness, and soundness of speech that cannot be condemned, so that those who oppose you may be ashamed because they have nothing bad to say about you. Now, number 2, mentoring and coaching others. I've already also said a lot about that. All right, that is our job again, to also mentor and coach those who are coming after us. Number 3, taking up leadership roles. Again, is also the age we will still turn to these older people and say, please come, we want you to come and serve, we want you to come and minister, we want you to come do 1 or 2, 3 things, be in charge of this or help us in that particular, be the chairman of this committee or the other, because we trust you. We know that you're able, you have experience, you're mature, you are seasoned. Let's look at season 5, 60 years and above, finishing well. Anybody in this category, 60 years and above? Oh, we have our mom there. Anybody else? 60 years and above? Hey, what happened to all of them? Oh, they came for the first service. Eh? We had quite a good number of them in the first service. Mom, you're by yourself. All right? Come on, let's appreciate her. I mean, she's the only one in this service. God bless you. So what are the needs of those who are in this? Number 1 is healthy living. All right? This is the age where you start eating domas religiously and guaches, arrowroots, and sukuma wiki. You know, that's the age. You start avoiding salt and sugar, all the good things in life, you know, where your food becomes a prescription, as I normally say. You go to a doctor and he prescribes domas for a week, you know. But we're all heading there by there, just so you know. Enjoy your burgers and your pizzas now. But you'll come a time when you'll be told those things, wachana nazo. All right? But healthy living, and it's important, especially that, you know, it's amazing when you're young, the things you can get away with. You can eat anything, including barbed wire. But the older you get, you know, there was a time I could eat. I could eat a whole whatever of, you know, that whatever of Kimbo, and I don't even put on weight. Nowadays, you eat 3 burgers in a week, and it shows up in your body. And you put on weight, losing it. Some of you are laughing, you know what I'm talking about. The older you get, your body changes amazingly. Do you not know that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit, who is in you, whom you have received from God? You are not your own. You are bought at a price. Therefore, honor God with your body. Number 2, this is the age where they want to keep company of people who understand them. All right? This is the age where relationships become very important. And not just any flimsy relationship. This is the age where they want to have people around them, people who understand them, you know, people who they can just sit and talk for hours, people who they can be there for one another, people who they can challenge one another. That's the age where fellowship becomes very sweet among them, you know. Number 3, support and care becomes important. This is the age where we who are younger need to support and care for them, look out for them, make sure that they are okay. This is the age also where they need reassurance, all right? Just a phone call, a text message, just to tell them, hey, I've been praying about you, I've been thinking about you, or I just passed by to see how you're doing, just to reassure them that they're still important and that we still care about them. Even to your old age and gray hairs, I am He. I am He who will sustain you. I have made you, and I will carry you. I will sustain you, and I will rescue you. So how can the church, how can we minister to the elderly? Number one, the church can provide audio scriptures for those with impaired sight. This is the age, by the way, this is a stage where some of these physical conditions become real. All right? My own dad, before he died, that was in 2006, for a whole year, just before he passed on, he had lived with diabetes all his life. He had actually lost most of his sight. Now, can you imagine, especially for a man, how difficult that must have been for him? You know, you've been a very energetic man, and you could see then, but in your latter years, you find that you can hardly see. You actually become very dependent on other people. All right? So it's not something that you are used to. It's something that now you have to learn to do. And it can be very difficult. And that's the time now we have to come and surround those kind of people, provide them with the care that is necessary. Are you with me? So they may not be able to read the Bible for themselves. Is there something we can do as a church? Create opportunities to celebrate the elderly and organize regular visitation. Yeah, I know, was it Friday and yesterday, I think the golden agers, that's what we call them here, those who are 50 and above, were out in Kadolta. And what were they doing? Just fellowshipping. Because that's the age, hawataki mambo mingi. That's the age you just want to relax. They don't want to talk about projects. You know, they don't want to talk about land, that you could plot. That moment they have lost interest in those things. They just want to fellowship and sing hymns. Especially the ones that talk about heaven, you know. Right. Number 3, facilitate intentional fellowship and initiate care policy for the elderly. Right? Structure the church facilities with the needs of the elderly in mind. Even when we build our new building here, one of the things we'll have to ensure that is incorporated in the structure is to ensure that that building is accessible to anybody and everybody. Whether you're blind, whether you're lame, whether you can't walk and whatever, just to make sure that anybody who comes to church can access the facility and feel comfortable like everybody else. How can the elderly serve? Plug in to relevant ministries. In other words, you're never too old to serve. Let me tell you this, by the way. In God's kingdom, you can retire from your work, you can retire from your business, you can retire from active service in other things, but you'll never retire from the ministry. Did you hear me? Ministry is one thing you don't retire from. You keep serving until the day the Lord calls you home. So even for the elderly, whether you're 60, 70, whatever, as long as you have strength in your bones, you have strength in your body, you can still plug in to relevant ministries. Never be lacking in zeal, the Apostle Paul said, but keep your spiritual fervor, seeking the Lord. Be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, faithful in prayer. Number 2, like I've already said, I don't think I can say any more than I already have, mentoring and coaching. All right? Coach the younger people. It's your responsibility. I've been reminded of your sincere faith which first lived in your grandmother Lois and in your mother Eunice, and I'm persuaded now lives in you also. Young Timothy had been well coached, well mentored by those who had gone on before him. That's what the Apostle Paul was acknowledging here. And there will always be need for the older people to mentor the young people in the church. Now, but the 4th one is missions and outreach. You can be involved in missions and outreach. Sometimes, you know, in those ages also, where now you have a little bit much more time at your disposal because maybe you've retired from work, from your career and what have you. Keep yourself busy. Find a mission. Go out on a mission somewhere, all right? Talk to others about the love of Christ. Demonstrate the love of Christ to other people. Now, this is also very important, being a reconciler and mediator in church and society. The good thing is, the older people, usually the older you get, and I'm sure our mom here can probably testify to the same, you realize the older you get, the more quiet you get. Have you ever noticed that? Usually when you're young, you're very fiery. You want everybody to know your opinion. Even me, I have an opinion, even when it doesn't matter, all right? An opinion, you want to give people, you want to tell people what you think. No, you know, you're wrong. The older you get, especially when you get to those ages, you will just sit over there. Those are the ages you see people acting foolishly. You just shake your head. You don't say much anymore. Because you've been there, as you normally say, been there, done that. Those are the ages you just nod your head. You shake your head. That's how you communicate. So, in your head you're thinking, these young people, you know. You ask them something, they say, you know. That's the age, because you have said everything that could have been said. There is nothing to say anymore. You know, you're laughing. That's where you're going, all of you. Like, some of you are so fiery. Everybody knows your opinion, even the cat. See a cat. So fiery, you know. Everybody must know that you have arrived, including your boss. You want to tell him that he's wrong. One young lady, I love so much, and this young lady one day came and told me she had been fired from her job, and she was so broken. Oh, Pastor, they fired me. Can you imagine? So I said, what happened? So she told me the story, you know, the way they normally take you from, you know, Timbuktu, la 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 la. You know, 30 minutes later, they have not told you what happened. So finally, she tells me that how she, whatever, you know, she didn't agree with the boss because the boss was doing something, so she had to go and tell the boss that what she was doing was very wrong and blah, blah, blah. I looked at her and said, you know, even if I was your boss, I would have also fired you. So I say, you're telling your boss that as who? Are you with me? Because she's young. She's thinking she must tell the boss. She knows, after all, she has a degree. The boss doesn't. When you're young, you do those foolish things. When you're older, you just shake your head. Somebody shake your head. Practice. Just shake your head. Just shake your head. I'm trying to help you. All right. Notice, godliness and contentment is great gain. Though we have discussed seasons of life in a chronological stages, the unfolding of life, by the way, is not always neat and tidy. People have different experiences as they go through the seasons of life. And God can use, here's the important thing, God can use a person greatly irrespective of their age, ability, or experience. Therefore, the most important thing is to focus on what God can enable one to do and to become at any season. Are you with me? So not to wait until I come to the next season so that my life can have meaning. No, wherever you are, doesn't matter how young, how old you are, at wherever you are, God can actually use every one of us. One as if you were. Amen? Every head bowed, every eye.